So I know most of the artifact videos that I've made recently have been the card review videos, and thankfully those are almost done. I did say that I was going to go through all of them. We're at the point now where there's a small handful left, so after that we're going to go back to more traditional content. It'll be gameplay, some tips and tricks, things like that. But to break up the monotony, I did say I was going to sprinkle in some videos along the way, and this is going to be one of them. I think I finally got the blue-black aggro deck that I've been playing for fun to a point where I like it. I have successfully done a 5-win run in the prize play for Constructed with it. I think that it is got a lot of potential, and I'm going to share with you the list that I have, and then we're going to hop into a game and see how that goes. Right now, after the patch and the way things are going, the item deck that I'm rocking is back to 3 Blink Daggers, 2 Phase Boots because they're amazing with Sorla, and they can be pretty impactful with even somebody like Phantom Assassin. I'm actually running Stonehall Cloak now, and 1 Jasper Daggers as like a catch-all. Now, one of the interesting things here is that by running both Cloak and Daggers, you can practice a little Cloak and Dagger, pun intended, when you're purchasing things. One of the most common things to do when your opponent has gold and you see them spend gold is to pay attention to how much they have spent, and then you can usually make an educated guess about the items that they have in hand. But by running 2 items that cost 5 gold, your opponent now has to make an educated guess about, did I buy a cloak? Did I buy a daggers? Did I buy, 2 cloaks, 1 of each? In a perfect world, I would even like to squeak in 1 more daggers, but I just don't think that it is as important as some of these other items at the moment. Again, you could go back to what I was doing before, which would be 2 daggers here and then 2 daggers here. Going down to 2 Blink Daggers isn't terrible because this deck does run 1 Relentless Pursuit, but having 3 is still pretty solid as well. Now, in terms of talking about the deck itself, it does run 1 Relentless Pursuit. Even when I'm running 3 Blink Daggers, because I have 3 Black Heroes, it's pretty common to have this be an impactful play, and you'll have some choices in terms of the lane or the hero you want to use this on. But I like running this as a one-of because, well, quite frankly, your opponent, again, when they see you spend 7 gold, they're kind of playing around you having a Blink Dagger, taking that kind of mobility into account. But by running this as a one-of, you can sometimes be mobile when they were not expecting it, or being more mobile than they expect. If they expect you to blink 1 hero and then you also use Relentless Pursuit to bail out, you can sometimes catch people by surprise. So I do like this as a one-of in most of my lists that run 3 Black Heroes. And then we're going to see some early game in the form of 3 Untested Grunts, and this is a new addition, but it has been settling in better than I thought it would. I'm currently running 2 Better Late Than Never, and the reason for doing this is pretty simple. Blue doesn't have a lot of great early game creeps. It's basically like this as a pseudo creep or the zombie. I like this better than the zombie because it gives you cross lane capabilities, and specifically in a deck that runs the Oath, being able to play additional creeps into a lane when your opponent is not expecting you to be able to play additional creeps into that lane can be very, very impactful. This deck also is just struggling for some early game drops. This does not have the benefit of the red-black aggro variant, which I do ultimately think is probably still the best version of this Oath aggro style deck. But you don't have your Stonehalls, you don't have your Legionnaires, those high impact, high quality creeps that the red-black one does, so you have to make up for that somehow. Better Late Than Never is the best way to do that right now, right? This is like just the best tool at our disposal. It's not great, but it's been better than the alternatives that I have tested. Ladders comes from our heroes, 3 of the Oath and 1 Disciple of Nevermore. These are for closing out towers and or closing out an ancient, and essentially it's the core of this deck. So really what this deck is trying to do, even though I label this as blue-black aggro, and even though you want to be aggressive in your early game, in many ways this is like a low curve combo deck. And what I mean by that is that other combo decks are traditionally an artifact trying to ramp up to some high mana value and then do something with like Incarnation or make crazy Time of Triumph plays or do things along those lines. This deck is instead usually trying to apply a little bit of early pressure and then capitalizing on it with big splash plays at mana 6 and mana 7. Mana 6 might be something like playing a Disciple and a Ladders, a Disciple and an Oath. Mana 7 is typically trying to combine a Dimensional Portal or a very big Prey on the Weak, again along with Oath, Disciple, or Ladders, so that you can punch a tower or the Ancient very, very hard from hand, kind of unexpectedly. That's the power of this deck. That's the reason that you would consider running the blue-black version as opposed to the red-black. Red-black just has better creep quality and better hero quality for the early game. So it establishes kind of control and then snowballs. This is more of a, you kind of prepare, you get your Canna into a good position, and then you do a big amount of burst, and you try to do it like from hand and in ways where your opponent is either not prepared or not in a position where they can respond to your burst. So a little bit of a difference in playstyle. Deck does run 3 ganks because we have 3 black heroes, and again, gank is one of those ways you can set up your big splashy play, right? So if you've got Phantom Assassin in lane 1, you're trying to pull your mini combo, if you will, off in lane 2. You can use the gank to get rid of a hero in that lane so that they can't respond, and then hit them for a big chunk of damage. A Gloaty, very good creep, aggressive, direct damage, just does all the things you want. Tyler Estate Censor is here because it's a big body, and the mana manipulation can help slow down your opponent. And then lastly, we have 2 copies of Conflagration to complement March of the Machines, and a lot of times it's not uncommon on your turn 5, your mana turn 5, if you will, to pick your target lane that you're going to try to like combo in on mana 6 or mana 7, and like double cross lane play these improvements into it, right? If you play a Conflag and then you also play a March, then by the time a full cycle rolls around, it will be enough to clear most creeps, you know, melee and played creeps from hand, and even some heroes out of the way, so that again you've got a clear path and an open board so that when you play your combo you can get a lot of damage in. You can also use these as tools to help slow down your opponent, because again, you don't have the same level of early game as like a red-black aggro deck does. So if you do start to fall behind, you can use a combination of these, for example, to maybe slow down their attempts just long enough for you to get your combo off. Then we've also got Eclipse, again, just from the Luna and the coup de grace. So this is the deck. As far as hero choices, Luna's just here because she's resilient, and the Eclipse can help, again, clear up a lane for you. We've got Phantom Assassin because it's a big body, and coup de grace helps. She's also a great gank target. We have Sorla Khan on the flop. Ideally, you'd like her to be on the turn so that you can find a place where she's more likely to hit a tower, but we've got far more black cards that you want to play on this first turn than we do blue cards. In fact, until I added these, you know, better late than nevers, there were no blue cards that you were really looking to play first turn, and that felt really bad having Canna here and only 1 black hero, because, you know, if you get Assault Ladders and an Untested Grunt or something, then, you know, something ends up stuck in your hand. So Sorla, unfortunately, has to kind of bite the bullet, pray to RNGesus, and take this lead-off position just to offset the color ratio. It does also let us kind of pick where Canna wants to go as well, and there is some benefits to that. So instead of Canna being in a lane that, you know, might be unfavorable, and then that's where your creeps are stuck going into a lane that you already wanted to abandon after maybe a really bad flop. This way it allows you to put Canna in a more favorable position. And then Tinker brings up the rear just because it's weakest health pool, long activated ability, and so on and so forth. So this is the list as I am currently running it, and I've been having a lot of fun playing it. Like I said, I have managed to go 5 wins in a run with it so far. Had a couple of 4-win runs as well. It is not the most competitive deck, but it is good enough, I think, to have a lot of fun, and it's also very budget friendly. So that is another thing I want to point out. Most of the cards in here are pretty cheap to buy on the market as of filming this. Canna might be the most expensive card in here. You know, picking up 3 Oaths is potentially expensive, but it's a great buy because you can throw them in a lot of aggressive decks. The conflagrations are pretty cheap right now, so like overall this is just a very budget friendly build as well if you're looking for that sort of thing. So anyway, that's me done droning. Let's go ahead and jump into a game and see how it performs. Alright, so here we go, diving into our game, and it's going to be interesting because we are up against a tricolor deck in Constructed. So looked like it was 2 green, 2 red, and Lich here. This ought to be rather interesting. The presence of the red heroes and honestly the Treant for the early game does potentially spell some issues for us. Now we have to make a decision here about how we want to handle this flop. We do have 1 copy of the Oath, which theoretically would allow us to make a trade here if we really wanted to commit to that. I'm not necessarily convinced that is the case, because then it is a rather like early committal, but it would give us a full clear here. Alright, so Bristle's just going to go ahead and not even let us take the Better Late Than Never that we wanted to take. Bristle does not get the armor though, so they just, I guess, take the turn 1 duel because they wanted the gold, is the only thing that I can think of. So we're going to go ahead and pass that over. And now we are in the position where we have to make that decision, right? Do we want to just play an Oath here? Because if we full clear this, then Drow is what's going to have to come down. And I'm not a big fan of turn 1 Oaths, but just given the way this lane has lined up, we're going to do it. We are going to take a big chance.
Make them pay.
And they're going to answer with a Mist. That's really interesting. That tells me that they want to come back over here and really fight for this. We'll go ahead and pick up a Blink Dagger. So they ended up with 1 creep, and we did as well. I have to assume that their Drow is going to come over here because that gives them a good chance of at least blocking Sorla. Canna now has to make the decision of essentially, does it want to jump in front of Legion, or do we want Canna to go here to keep feeding this Oath lane, knowing that we can't play stuff there? And that is not an easy decision to make at the moment. But I think it is one that we are going to go ahead and take. So Drow does end up over there. So we got a 50-50 shot of somebody ending up in front of our Sorla. Did not, but we did catch a kind of unfavorable arrow. The gank is a fantastic pickup though. We're going to go ahead and take this gank. Get this out of here so that they cannot respond. Also means that we don't have to worry about that arrow. Now we could really go all in here. It would probably be a pretty big mistake, but we could also just use this Blink Dagger and send our Phantom Assassin packing. We're only going to trade with a creep though, so maybe it's not that bad actually. It does represent 10 more damage, potentially 12. So basically, as long as this doesn't catch an arrow, this would be enough for us to take this tower over in the right if they don't have a cross lane play. So we're going to go ahead and do this. And it does look like we caught the straight and narrow there. So we're doing nothing in 2 lanes, but we're going to take a very early tower, which will hopefully allow us to double up our efforts in another position. Now, I could play this somewhere now, which would, in many ways, kind of telegraph where I wanted to go in the future. But I don't think that's correct. I think that we just take our tower. We want to save that assault ladders, I think, for a more surprise play. The phase boots out of the secret shop is rather tempting. But then again, so is a Stonehall cloak to get that thing ticking. I think we're going to take this phase boots, though. So this is going to go here. And then we have to decide what we want to do with this Tinker. The real question is what do we think that they're going to do with these heroes? At least one is going here. 2, 4. Assault ladders could represent an additional 14. These are an additional 30. We could come really close if they ignored this to just outright pushing 80.
5 seconds.
I don't think it's correct, though.
3.
I don't think it's correct. I think Tinker's got to come over here. Now, they're likely going to be looking to play a Silamenes across so that they can open up a Chain Frost. That's what I would suspect, anyway. Not in front of this, but again, they can do something to target it. We can either take a Better Late Than Never that puts additional pressure over here, or we can Dimensional Portal here. I think the Dimensional Portal just ends up being the correct play.
I bring wisdom.
So there's the favor, but interestingly enough, it went to that lane, so I can only assume that means they want to set up a Spring the Trap to further defend. So they likely do not have the Chain Frost, or they just have additional plays they want to make here. But I have to believe this is going to be a Spring the Trap, and there it is.
Let's see them try to resist me.
And now we have to make the decision about what could they play at 5 mana that would do 2 damage. So we're actually just going to go ahead and play this Assault Ladders first, just so that we get it at least a half. And now we have to decide whether or not we want to use this Phase Boots, because Phase Boots on our Phantom Assassin would allow us to actually potentially trade here, which would deny them from potentially playing here again. They would have to play the Drow. So we're going to go ahead and do that.
Perfect for this task.
We're still getting 42 potentially on the tower, but if we eliminate this, then it should leave only Drow coming down here the following turn. Alright. So we'll go ahead and take our trades. Also means that we'll get to redeploy both of these in a couple of turns. The Blink Dagger is going to be a fine pickup. We know 2 creeps are coming down here because of Canna. So the Blink Dagger also has the potential to represent even just an additional body over here. Wow, they take the Drow. Take the Drow in this lane and nothing. Nothing in that. Right, so that tells me they've got to have either cross-lane plays or some form of mobility.
I'm not going to wait and find out what you had planned.
So they take the Gust. And because of some very favorable, like incredibly favorable arrows here, there's nothing that we can do to stop them, and then they will have these two coming down, including the Frost. So it's gonna be rather interesting how this plays out the following turn.
I can use this.
So it was a big time Gust. We do have the Blink Dagger, but you still cannot use the items while silenced, so unfortunately it does little to help us. I have a second Spring the Trap here.
Let's pick a fight, shall we?
And a Blink Dagger. Alright. So they're going kind of all in on the defense of that Oath lane. Which is reasonable. So the question that we now essentially have to take on is, do we want to march here and then transition to trying to fight for this and push that? Or do we just march here knowing that we're still going to get Canna and creeps coming here next time, and we can redeploy here? We could also just march here and then still commit to this, kind of forcing them into a pickle. I think I like that the most.
Your bodies will litter the battlefield.
Like they're gonna get a pretty big clear here, but it will also give us an upkeep kill on this Bristle the following turn, and this. So they catch a little bit of a break here. Phantom Assassin comes here because of the Blink Dagger. We just now have to decide what to do with our Tinker, and I actually think Tinker is going to end up here as well. And I'm a bit interested about this. A bit curious. Perhaps they've got some 80 push potential of their own?
You know what's about to happen, don't you? I challenge.
So they're going to go ahead and lock us out of blue. It's a quality duel. Six, 12, 18. We would have to do 20 more.
Seconds remaining.
Less than 20 because we'll have March of the Machines hitting the tower as well. So now we just have to hope that they don't have something that interrupts us too much. Thankfully we are split here, so if they do have a Gust, they can only hit one of our heroes.
I will learn how to use this.
We're going to go ahead and jump over here. Because that is threatening a lot more damage now. And then we'll start doing some math here in a moment. We are still going to likely play an untested grunt here just to reduce the potential damage that we're taking. They still have 2 items and 5 mana.
Once I kill you, I'll be a legend amongst the Aglodi.
We'll drop a phase boots
Sometimes
next.
power demands sacrifice.
Interesting choice. We're going to go ahead and do this here, just in case they do have a duel left with this too. But right now it's looking pretty good for us. So now we're going to just go ahead and back out and do some math. So all of these should clear. So as long as we don't get 80'd here, which is a possibility, if they've got like double disciple or some oaths or something, but as long as we don't get 80'd there, taking this Tinker and shipping them all the way down should be enough for us to finish this Ancient. So it's gonna be a moment of truth in this middle lane. It's possible that I did make a mistake here. Being that this is a 2-2-1,
In life you are nothing.
I would be
In death you
moderately
find
surprised
purpose.
if they had a lot of tools there, but
Beg for your lives.
okay, so they have a steam cannon, but that is only going to take out 1 creep. We, I believe, should still be okay. Because of the March of the Machines. The March of the Machines is +4. So they do remove a creep. We get upkeep kills and clears. And we have plenty of damage. And we lock it up. So there you kind of see how you can use the power of the Oath to push through. And that was a turn 1 Oath, mind you. We telegraphed everything we were doing in that game. We played a turn 1 Oath, we deployed a Canna there, and kind of still didn't matter. So there you have it. Hopefully this deck at least inspires you to try something new. I know that there's a lot of you know, simply blue decks floating around in the meta. I know that there's still a lot of red-black, and I know that red-green ramp is as popular as it's ever been, but it's fun to experiment with some other color combinations, and again, it's a very budget-friendly deck, so there you go. Thanks for watching, and I hope to catch you in the next video.